the CoinDesk article, Just Don't Break Bitcoin, that is about Op Next, that really was around scaling Bitcoin. And what it did was you got a lot of pretty smart people, Jeremy Rubin, Peter Todd, Rusty Russell, et cetera, that are basically kind of trying to guide the direction of Bitcoin in terms of what kind of features we potentially want to add in. Soft forks specifically, no hard forks, just what kind of things we want to do with anybody can spend transactions. And what I really liked about that was specifically that, first of all, nobody came to the conclusion of, oh, we found the magic bullet to consensus, right? And so what that to me, why I'm really bullish is because as long as you don't break Bitcoin, it's probably going to do number go up stuff. And it's still showing that Bitcoin is extremely resilient to people or just a single entity grabbing a lot of influence and being able to activate a feature on Bitcoin. For right now, you have independents that literally have no funding who are like, hey, I would like to do something like maybe the GSR to a specific business or organizations that are pushing for an entire opcode based on their soft fork. And what it showed me, though, is that a lot of these things can be used for scaling Bitcoin. Specifically, like my easy example would be like CTV. You can do the shared UTXO setup, kind of enables ARC and some other fun things for self-custody, but there are caveats again, like you're not technically, like you got a UTXO, but there's some conditions. But yeah, overall, that's what I'm really bullish about, is just watching all these developers converge and kind of say, like, these are the things we can do with Bitcoin, understanding what it means to be in consensus and kind of discovering, like, how do we form consensus potentially, though we didn't actually answer that question. I don't think anybody will be able to. And then I will say that it was really good to see in that conference specifically that there still is a giant set of, or a lot of people still understand that Bitcoin is not done. And what I mean by that is that Bitcoin still has a few issues with consensus, specifically legacy Bitcoin script, creating just blocks that are hard to validate. And the great consensus cleanup, which is my favorite, was talked about pretty extensively. But yeah, before nation state adoption, you can't have like miners just producing blocks that cause problems for the Bitcoin network. And I got a reality check for that when I worked for Marathon and did Slipstream for the non-standard transactions. You get a few emails from people and they're like, hey, you do know this exists, right? Like, don't let that happen. So I hope that we can form consensus around some of these things to really push this so that everybody's ready to adopt Bitcoin and we don't have to think about these things, about these different actors potentially not following the incentive structure. So overall, it just was really good to see the amount of energy focused on just building new features into Bitcoin to enable ideally scaling. But again, back to my previous point, some of these things I think could be used potentially for things more degenerate, like side chains or swaps for different things.
Today's Bullish Bit was brought to you by CoinKite, makers of the Cold Card Q, my personal choice for securing my Bitcoin and self-custody. You can check them out by scanning the QR code or clicking the link in the show notes down below.